Have you ever been asked to lie for someone you just met, knowing it could cost you everything? Marcus Kane had exactly 30 seconds to decide before the Imperial Guard burst through the door. The alien girl standing before him, silver hair cascading over her shoulders, violet eyes wide with desperation. Those distinctive, pointed ears, barely visible beneath her hair, trembled as she whispered the words that would change both their lives. "Please pretend you're my father." Marcus was an outsider, a human living on the fringes of the Xylothian Empire, scraping by as a salvage trader in the neutral zone, where humans were tolerated but never trusted. He'd learned long ago to keep his head down, ask no questions, and definitely don't get involved in alien politics. Yet here stood this young woman in tactical pants and a sleek gray jacket with luminescent threading, looking terrifyingly human except for those telltale ears, begging him to claim her as his daughter. "I don't even know your name," Marcus said, his gravel voice betraying his confusion. "Aria," she breathed, glancing at the door as heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside his cramped quarters. "My name is Aria, and if they find out who I really am, they'll execute me right here. Please, I know what outsiders are, people who've lost everything. Pretend you haven't lost me too." The desperation in her voice struck something deep in Marcus's chest, something he'd buried 15 years ago when the colony wars took his actual daughter. Before his brain could override his heart, he pulled Aria close and hissed, "Stay quiet and follow my lead." The door exploded inward with a pneumatic hiss. 3 Xylothian Imperial Guards stormed in, their crystalline armor reflecting the dim lights of Marcus's quarters, weapons drawn and humming with lethal energy. The lead guard, a towering figure with deep blue skin and eyes like liquid mercury, fixed his gaze on Aria. "Step away from the human." "Princess Aria Seth of the royal house," the guard commanded, his translator rendering his words in perfect English. "Your father, Emperor Vatsa, demands your immediate return, princess." The word hit Marcus like a plasma bolt. This girl wasn't just any alien, she was royalty. And he'd just wrapped his arm around the biggest political crisis in the sector. Every survival instinct screamed at him to let her go, apologize, and pray they didn't vaporize him for touching her. Instead, Marcus did something that shocked everyone in that room, including himself. He laughed. "Princess?" Marcus said, his voice dripping with theatrical confusion. "This is my daughter, Aria Kane. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but you've got the wrong girl." The guard's mercury eyes narrowed. "Impossible. We tracked her biological signature to this location. The Emperor's daughter fled the royal palace 3 days ago." "DNA scans confirm." "Then your DNA scans are broken," Marcus interrupted, stepping forward with the kind of reckless confidence only a man with nothing left to lose could muster. "I've been hauling salvage in this sector for 20 years. Aria's been with me for all 22 years of her life. Her mother was human. Check your databases again." The guard raised a scanning device, and Marcus felt his heart hammering against his ribs. This was it. The scan would prove Aria was pure Xylothian royalty, no human DNA whatsoever, and they'd both be dead before they hit the floor. But then Aria did something extraordinary. As the scanner's blue light washed over her, Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation spread across his skin. The device beeped, and the guard's expression shifted from certainty to confusion. "The scan shows human hybrid markers," the guard said slowly, studying the readout as if it had personally betrayed him. 50% human DNA. "But that's impossible." "The princess is, like I said," Marcus interrupted again, pulling Aria closer. "Wrong girl. Now, unless you have a warrant to harass human citizens in the neutral zone, I suggest you take your broken scanner and get out of my home." The 3 guards exchanged glances. The lead guard looked from his scanner to Aria to Marcus, clearly torn between his orders and the evidence before him. Protocol demanded they follow the technology. Finally, with a grunt of frustration, he lowered his weapon. "This isn't over," the guard warned. "We will verify these results with the Emperor. If you're lying, human, there's nowhere in this galaxy you can hide." The guards left, and Marcus waited until their footsteps faded completely before releasing Aria and stumbling backward. "What did you just do?" he demanded, his voice shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. "How did you fake that scan?" Aria's luminescent skin seemed to glow brighter for a moment before fading back to its normal subtle shimmer. "It's a royal ability," she explained quietly, looking down at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. "We can temporarily rewrite our own genetic code. It's how the royal family has maintained power for centuries. We can become anyone, anything. But it's exhausting, and I can only hold it for a few minutes at a time. She swayed suddenly, and Marcus caught her before she collapsed. Up close, he could see the exhaustion carved into her features, the way her hands trembled, how her breathing came in shallow gasps. "How long since you've eaten?" he asked, guiding her to the only chair in his quarters. 3 days, she admitted. "Since I ran." Marcus didn't ask questions. Not yet. He pulled out his emergency rations, protein bars that tasted like cardboard but kept you alive, and handed them to her. Aria ate like someone who'd forgotten what food was, and Marcus found himself studying her. She looked so young, despite being in her early 20s, and terrifyingly vulnerable. Why would a princess run from a palace? What could be so bad that she'd risk execution to escape? "Why did you help me?" Aria asked suddenly, breaking the silence. "You didn't know me. You knew it could get you killed. Why?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring at a photograph on his wall, the only possession he still carried from his old life. A little girl with brown hair and bright eyes, frozen forever at 7 years old. "You reminded me of someone I failed to protect once," he finally said. "I wasn't going to fail again." Aria followed his gaze to the photograph. "Your daughter?" "Was." The single word carried 15 years of grief. "Colony wars. I was off-world on a supply run. By the time I got back." He didn't finish. He never could. Aria's expression softened with genuine empathy. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Then, after a pause, "My father, the emperor, he's not a monster. But he's arranged for me to marry the sovereign of the Krill Federation. The alliance would end a war that's killed millions. One marriage for peace across 3 sectors. Sounds noble," Marcus observed carefully. "The sovereign is a creature that consumes its mates after breeding," Aria said flatly, her voice void of emotion, as if she'd had to repeat this fact to herself so many times it had lost all meaning. "I would birth the heir that unites our empires, and then I would die. My father says it's my duty. That one life is a small price for peace." Marcus felt rage kindle in his chest. "There's always another way to peace," he said. "Men who treat their daughters as currency just haven't bothered to look for it." "That's what I tried to tell him," Aria said, and for the first time, Marcus saw tears gathering in her violet eyes. But in his eyes, "I'm not his daughter anymore. I'm a political asset, a bargaining chip. So I ran, because I wanted 3 days to be just a person. Just Aria. Not a princess, not a bride, not a sacrifice. Just someone who mattered because she existed, not because of what she could provide." The tears fell now, tracing lines down her luminescent skin, and Marcus felt that buried part of his heart crack open. He knelt beside her chair, and without thinking, took her hand. It was warm, surprisingly human, despite the slight glow beneath her skin. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You are a person. You matter. And I don't care if your father commands fleets or controls planets, no one gets to decide your worth except you." Aria looked at him with such raw hope that it physically hurt. "Will you help me?" she asked. "I don't have anywhere else to go. The guards will be back once they verify with my father. They'll know I manipulated the scan. I need someone on my side, just for a little while, please." Marcus knew what the smart play was. Turn her in, apologize to the emperor, maybe even get a reward, survive to see another day. Instead, he squeezed her hand and said, "How do you feel about becoming a salvage trader?" What happened next would become legend in the neutral zones, whispered in trading posts and spaceports across the sector. Marcus Kane, the outsider who'd lost everything, and Princess Aria Seth, who'd given up everything, became partners. Marcus taught her how to pilot his battered ship, the Wanderer, through asteroid fields and debris zones. Aria learned to use a plasma cutter, to identify valuable tech in wreckage, to haggle with traders who'd sooner shoot you than pay fair price. She was brilliant. Royal education combined with innate intelligence made her a natural. But more than that, she was funny. She'd make dry observations about the absurdity of their situations that would have Marcus laughing despite himself. She'd hum strange alien melodies while working that somehow made the long, tedious salvage runs bearable. And slowly, carefully, they became something neither had expected: family. 3 weeks into their partnership, the Imperial fleet found them. They'd just finished a salvage run in the Epsilon debris field when 12 warships materialized from hyperspace, surrounding the Wanderer like wolves circling prey. The communication channel crackled to life, and Emperor Vothsith himself appeared on their view screen. He looked remarkably like Aria, the same luminescent skin, the same pointed ears, the same violet eyes, but his were hard as diamonds and twice as cold. Aria, the Emperor said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. This ends now. Return immediately, or I will destroy that ship and drag your remains from the wreckage. You will fulfill your duty. Marcus saw Aria's face drain of color, saw her hands tremble on the console. He'd seen that look before in refugees who'd given up, in prisoners who'd accepted their fate, resignation, defeat, and he realized with startling clarity that somewhere in the past 3 weeks, this alien girl with pointed ears and a luminescent glow had stopped being a stranger he'd helped and become the daughter he'd lost. No, Marcus said, and Aria's head snapped toward him in shock. Marcus, don't listen to me, Vothsith, Marcus said, standing and facing the view screen with the same reckless courage that had gotten him into this mess. I'm nobody. An outsider, a human who trades in scrap metal and lives in a ship held together by hope and duct tape. But I know one thing you seem to have forgotten. Aria is a person, not a treaty. And I won't let you turn her into a sacrifice because you're too lazy or too scared to find another path to peace. The Emperor's expression was thunderous. You dare lecture me on peace? I have spent decades preventing war. Millions of lives hang in the balance, then spend one more decade finding a solution that doesn't cost your daughter hers. Marcus roared back. You think peace built on murder lasts? You think an alliance forged from her corpse will hold? You're not preventing war, you're just delaying it and calling the delay victory. Silence fell across the communication channel. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat, could feel Aria's shocked stare burning into his side. He'd just shouted down an emperor who commanded fleets capable of glassing planets. He was absolutely going to die. But then Emperor Vothsith did something no one expected. He laughed. It wasn't a cruel laugh or a mocking one. It was the surprised laugh of a man who couldn't remember the last time someone had told him he was wrong. What is your name, human? The Emperor asked. Marcus Kane. Marcus Kane, you have more courage than sense. You've harbored a fugitive princess, obstructed an imperial investigation, and just called the Emperor of the Xylothian Empire lazy and scared in front of his entire command staff. The Emperor's eyes glittered with something that might have been amusement. I should have you executed. Probably, Marcus agreed. But you won't. And why is that? Because somewhere under that crown and title, you're still a father, Marcus said quietly. And you know I'm right. The Emperor stared at him for a long moment, then his gaze shifted to Aria. My daughter, he said, and his voice had lost some of its imperial edge. Is this what you want? A life of salvage and poverty with this human? Aria stood, and when she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. What I want is a choice. For the first time in my life, I want someone to ask me what I think, what I feel, what I'm willing to give. If you need an alliance with the Krill, find another way. I'll help you find it. I'll negotiate. I'll use every skill you've trained into me. I'll work until my hands bleed, but I won't die to make your job easier. Something flickered across the Emperor's face, pain, regret, maybe even pride. You sound like your mother, he said softly. She never made anything easy either. He was quiet for a moment then. Very well. Return to the palace. Not as a bargaining chip, but as my chief negotiator. We'll find another path to peace, together. Aria's eyes widened. You mean it? I'm an emperor. I don't say things I don't mean, Vothsith replied. But Aria, if you choose this path, you choose its hardships. You'll work harder than you ever imagined. You'll face those who say you're shirking duty. And this human, his gaze fixed on Marcus, cannot come with you. The court would never accept a human outsider in the palace. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Of course, he'd known it couldn't last, this strange makeshift family they'd built. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. I understand, he said, before Aria could respond. She belongs in your world, not mine. No, Aria's voice cut through the moment like a blade. Both Marcus and the Emperor stared at her. No, they said in unison. I'll return, Aria said, her chin lifted with royal determination that reminded Marcus exactly whose daughter she was. I'll negotiate peace. I'll face the court, I'll do everything you ask. But Marcus Kane is my family now. Not by blood, but by choice. And if the court can't accept that, then maybe the court needs to change. She turned to Marcus, and he saw tears in her violet eyes again. But these were different, not desperation, but determination. You gave me more than safety, she said. You gave me worth. You saw me as a person when the most powerful man in the empire saw me as a tool. You became the father I needed when my own father forgot how. I won't leave you behind. Marcus felt his own eyes burning. Aria, you don't have to. Yes, I do, she said firmly. You told me I get to decide my own worth. Well, I've decided. And part of that worth comes from the people I choose to keep in my life. You're one of them. Deal with it. For the second time that day, Emperor Votsith laughed. She definitely has her mother's fire, he said, shaking his head. Then, surprisingly, he smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his severe features. Very well, Marcus Kane. How would you feel about becoming an advisor to the Imperial Court? Someone has to keep my daughter grounded, and you seem irritatingly good at it. Marcus blinked. What? Consider it payment for keeping her safe, the Emperor said, and for having the spine to tell an emperor he's wrong. That's a rare quality. I could use more of it. And so Marcus Kane, outsider and salvage trader who'd lost everything, found himself gaining something he never expected, a new purpose, a new family, and a new life. Aria returned to the palace not as a sacrifice, but as a negotiator, and with Marcus at her side, sometimes advisor, always father in all the ways that mattered. She brokered a peace that didn't cost her life. She found alternative trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and treaties that gave the Krill Federation what they truly wanted: recognition and partnership, not consumption and dominance. It took 2 years of grueling negotiation, countless setbacks, and more than a few moments when Aria wanted to give up. But every time, Marcus was there, reminding her of her worth, her strength, her right to exist as more than a tool. The Emperor watched his daughter work, saw the fire and brilliance she brought to impossible situations, and wondered how he'd ever thought her greatest value was as a bride to be devoured. One evening, as Aria celebrated finally closing the Krill Treaty without a single marriage clause, she found Marcus standing on the palace balcony, staring out at the alien stars. Thank you, she said quietly, joining him. For what? Marcus asked. For everything. For lying to the guards, for shouting at my father, for teaching me that I was worth more than I'd been told. She paused. For being my father when I needed one most. Marcus smiled. And there was still sadness in it, there always would be, for the daughter he'd lost, but there was joy too. Thank you for asking, he said. When you showed up at my door and said, pretend you're my father, you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever, a reason to be one. Aria took his hand, her luminescent skin casting a soft glow in the twilight. Not pretend, she corrected gently. You're not pretending. You haven't been for a long time. And Marcus realized she was right. Somewhere between the desperate lie to the guards and this moment on a palace balcony, pretending had become truth. He was her father. She was his daughter. Not by blood or birth, but by choice, and that made it real. So, Marcus said, squeezing her hand, what impossible thing are you going to accomplish tomorrow, princess? Aria grinned, and in that expression Marcus saw both the powerful negotiator who'd brokered peace across sectors and the young woman who'd once eaten protein bars in his cramped quarters like they were a feast. Tomorrow? She said. Tomorrow I'm teaching you proper diplomatic etiquette so you stop accidentally insulting ambassadors at state dinners. I only insulted one ambassador, Marcus protested. And he deserved it. He's the Krill ambassador, and you called his ceremonial headdress a fancy squid hat. It looked like a fancy squid hat. Aria laughed, the sound echoing across the palace gardens, and somewhere deep in the night, Emperor Votsith heard his daughter's joy and smiled. The outsider had indeed shocked everyone, but not through violence or betrayal. He'd shocked them with something far more radical, the simple, revolutionary act of seeing a princess as a person and loving her as a daughter. Sometimes the most shocking thing you can do in a universe of empires and politics is choose family over survival. Love over fear, and believe that one person's worth is never measured by what they can be sacrificed for, but by who they choose to become. And in the end, Marcus Kane, outsider, traitor, and father, helped Aria become exactly who she was meant to be, not a sacrifice, not a princess, but simply, powerfully herself.